Welcome to Tell Me More, the all-steel podcast where design meets innovation and we explore the limitless potential of workspaces. In this exclusive series, we're peeling back the layers of workplace design. From the psychology of colors to the future of hybrid work, join us as we open doors to conversations with industry leaders, architects, and designers who redefine the modern workplace. This is Tell Me More, brought to you by Allsteel, because when it comes to designing the future, there's always more to discover.
Hello, and welcome to the Tell Me More podcast. My name is Dr. Lauren Gant, and I am a Senior Workplace Advisory Manager at Allsteel, and I'm so excited to be back on the pod, acting as your host today. And I'm especially excited because I brought a special guest with me today, my friend Raphael Williams.
Hi.
Welcome. So Raphael, I've had the pleasure to know you and get to work with you a little bit, but for those who have not yet had that privilege, can you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Oh, absolutely. My name is Raphael Williams. I'm a senior A&D manager based in New York. So I have the opportunity of focusing and building meaningful relationships with our design and architecture partners here in my market. I consider myself a culture carrier, and I'm someone that loves being a part of the creation of inspired spaces that excite people to come into the office. Community to me is one of those really important things that I'm really drawn to. And because of that, I decided that one of the things that's going to be important for me is to be really involved of the things that are going on in the New York market. So I joined IIDA New York, and there I sit on as a co-chair for the Equity Council, where our mission is to foster accountability towards creating just and equitable workplaces in the design industry.
Yes, and I have heard through the grapevine that you've recently been awarded the Ellen Cushman Distinguished Service Award for your work there, so congratulations.
Thank you. It was a surprise, a complete surprise, but exciting nonetheless.
Yeah. Did you have your acceptance speech ready to go?
Well, so I did not remember that this was happening, and so I was not prepared.
You didn't have it.
Yeah, I grabbed the mic and thanked my husband anyway.
Oh, perfect. That's all. That's important. That's great. So, Raphael, I love that phrase, culture carrier, and I think that is part of the reason. A lot of the reason I wanted you to be with me to have this conversation today, because we're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to both of our hearts. And that is regarding the intentional community. How do we create intentional community in the workplace? So you're, a great person to be having this conversation with. If you've been with us for any length of time, you've probably heard us talk about this idea of creating an intentional office, where we want to create spaces that are compelling and productive and inclusive and meaningful. And we want to do that by creating these intentional spaces that work for the types of activities that need to happen there. And so we've been talking about supporting 6 key activities that happen in the office. Those are, I have them listed here, but maybe you know them off the top of your head, Raphael. They are focus, collaboration, learning,
mentorship, socialization, and innovation.
I let you finish. That's great. Yeah, you got it. So we've been talking a lot about what those 6 activities are and what they mean. And we also know that humans are not robots. Newsflash, right? And we don't only come to work to do a checklist. We don't only need spaces that are productive. We need spaces that foster some humanness at work too. And we know that through community, we can develop this idea that we have personal and wellness reasons to come into the office, and we can actually be more attentive and inspired and present when we feel that sense of connection and community. So that's one of the reasons we feel like this is such a meaningful and relevant conversation to have. And we know that, this is so important that we decided to make it the whole story around Design Days, our Design Days experience. So if you were able to come visit us in Chicago during the trade show of Design Days, you heard us talk about this idea of intentional community. It really drove our design of the Experience Center there and allowed us to share some really compelling stories in that space. And Raphael, we were talking about that space and how much this topic resonated with our guests.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious about your design day experience. Why do you think people were so drawn to this conversation? How did it go for you talking about the intentional community?
What I love about us making a point of focusing on this conversation, it's because it's about the why the built environment really matters. And it's because we were able to really hone in on the heart and soul of why the organization is something that people choose with intention when they're thinking about going into the office. So as I see it, culture is what draws you in, and community is what keeps you going. I love saying that. But what was even more powerful for me was when I had two of my design leader friends coming into our showroom. I'll drop some names: Tom Palucci, Tom Palucci and Taryn Vella. Respectively, both of them are incredibly brilliant, talented people, and I really value their insight. So when the both of them in two different occasions said to me, this is a wonderful, meaningful conversation, and the importance of it as we're having the conversation as it relates to space is really powerful and very timely. And so having those people validate the fact that we're having this conversation about intentionality with regard to space, and it being like what gets me excited during the day, it's been very moving.
I love that. The fact that they're actually responding to that is something that they're craving and not just a message that we're trying to push. And I just have to have a mic drop for that statement that you laid out about culture is what draws you in and community is what keeps you going. I think that's so relevant. So when we think about, maybe the difference between workplace culture and workplace community, would you say culture is more about the overarching belief systems or set of values within a company, sort of the why of the company, and community is more about doing the work or the people within that space? Or how would you differentiate between culture and community?
When I think about the importance of culture, I think having a strong culture in the workplace it has a very strong effect on the social aspect, which then leads to a lot of myriad of other things that I think are important. But when we think about from a cultural standpoint, being able to talk to someone, communicate with someone authentically, and come into an environment where you feel that you being able to share ideas openly and without any sort of judgment is one of those things that can help to slide us into that lane of innovation where with that there's this level of enhancement that also happens with productivity. And so culture is important when we think about that from the foundation of what brings someone into the office or to a workplace, in my opinion. And community is where I feel helps us to stay connected to each other, helps us stay connected to something greater than ourselves. And the experience of community is what helps us feel like we have this sense of belonging, and that we have this level of support that we might not get anywhere else but in this chosen community. And so the long-winded answer to your question is they're the same but different.
Yeah. I love that you brought up that idea of psychological safety, or this sense that I can take these risks and, not only say, this is who I am and what I like and how I like to show up, but also like, I have this crazy idea for something that we've never tried before. And both of those things are innovative in terms of like showing up as who I am, but also innovating ideas for the company and that trust and authenticity and shared sense of belonging is really a key element of that psychological safety.
I love psychological safety because imagine going somewhere where you don't feel like you can just exhale and be yourself, and like how stifling that is. And then imagine going to a place like where we are, where we can come and present ourselves as we are. Like I wear my hat every single day because that's my thing.
Yes. Yeah, it's your trademark.
Imagine me sitting around without my hat on. You know what I mean?
I mean, you'd still be just as great, but I do love you in a hat.
So do I. It's great.
Yeah, and when I think about, we rattled off those 6 those 6 activities that we see in the office. When I think about those, I think there's a couple activities that are really helpful when we think about how do we drive this sense of community? How do we build trust? How do we build authenticity? So I've been thinking about the activities of mentorship, socialization, and you mentioned innovation, and how those are really, core to this idea of developing community. There's a lot of things that we can dive into about mentorship, but at its core, it helps me feel like I am understood as an individual, recognized, somebody's in my corner. When we think about socialization, I understand that I'm part of a group. I get to know my coworkers, right? As 3-dimensional people, I get to know Raphael and what he likes to do outside of work and how he loves fashion and wearing hats and why he loves those things. And then when I think, innovation, again, this idea that not only is it great for the company, but also, maybe I get a sense of drive and purpose from that. I find it exciting to develop things that are new. And to your point, these are things that keep me motivated, keep me coming back to a company. Yeah. It's not just about, the company's bottom line. It's about I like the people, I'm energized by the people I work with. I'm energized by the fact that I am, seen as an important element of that, and that we're doing something new and innovative and creative.
1000%. And what I hear, the overarching theme for me with regard to that, Lauren, is that it creates a sense of connection, which then is that sense of community. And it all goes back to that, especially when it comes to like mentorship, feeling seen and feeling heard and feeling like you're supported are those things that really create a strong foundation as you're thinking about building and creating this level of trust within your chosen organization. Mm-hmm. And this goes without saying, I would think this should go without saying, but being a part of a community can reduce a level of stress that may or may not be there, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we think about someone that might be feeling isolated, these support mechanisms of like mentorship, socialization, and collaboration, all those things that are about the we, can ultimately create this nurturing environment that benefits not only the physical but the mental health. And I think those are the things that we need to be able to say that we can support. Because I always talk about this idea of self-care, and you know this, Laura. Yeah. And so being able to feel your soul, the insides being supported and being nurtured, that's when that's where all the secret sauce is. Yeah. And that's when people, I believe, perform at their peak. Certainly I do.
I love that. I love that you draw that connection between community and well-being, because I think you're exactly right. I think the loneliness epidemic continues, right? We're not getting any, we're not making significant strides in reducing that. And not that everybody in your workplace has to be your best friend, but that you're making these connections and building these social networks that really can help you feel energized and connected at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All that.
I heard a quote recently that was something like, I have lots of connections, but no one to feed my cat. This idea that it's important to have different levels of connection, right? Some people I know my mailman or my mail person by sight. I say hello, we're friendly, but we're not best friends. But it's important to have different levels of connection. So I do have that person I can go to ask, for a favor, like feeding my cat, or like giving me feedback, or like pushing me in a direction that's, maybe uncomfortable for me to be going in.
So I gotta admit, that was really powerful, and that gave me goosebumps when you said that. And it really made me kind of emotional. I thought, God, can you imagine like having all of this connection, but then no one that you would give your house key to feed your cat? I mean, that's really deep. I mean, that for sure. But yeah, these connections, I think, we have to be really thoughtful and intentional yet again about when we think about connections. I was talking with my colleague as I walked into the office today, and I was telling her about my weekend, and we talked about, what our weekends were like. And so I was realizing that 2/3 of my weekend was essentially with connections that I made from work. Yeah. And that's really deep when I think about that, because how often do you have the opportunity to really enjoy the people that you spend a lot of time with, or want to spend time with outside from a work setting? And so having brunch with a design friend of mine on Sunday with his partner, or having drinks with my neighbor who's a design leader at another firm, I thought, I feel kind of lucky because my community is not only inside, but it's also outside.
Yeah.
And they get to overlap, and that really makes my soul happy.
That's great. I'm sure they felt lucky too to be able to connect with you. Do you think so? So we agree that, this idea of community has some impact positively on our well-being. Do you think it also impacts our ability to be productive?
Oh, absolutely.
At work?
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to authenticity. I think I said this earlier. Imagine going somewhere where you are presenting half of yourself, and so to me, that's presenting half my brain, right?
Right. Right.
So, when I can break down all those walls, that is not genuine Raphael, then I can operate on all pistons going like 1,000,
Right.
And when I think about that, and I think about that type of energy that's generated because of me being able to operate like that, I'm imagining that my colleagues are also able to operate at that level of intensity. And I love being inside that hive collective, I think that's a really powerful way of creating this energy internally so that we all are at maximum intensity, which may be great for me. It might not be great for everybody, but I think there's opportunities for us to think about, what that hive collective feels like in space. And so for me, I feed off of that. But there are those moments when I have to disconnect from the hive, and I really just want those moments to give me my space, let me have my peace, let me recenter. And and I love that we do a great job of thoughtfully adding those destinations or adjacencies on our floor plate that allow for me to do that. But back to your original question. I believe that when you are operating from a place of who you are in totality, there's a level of production and productivity that happens, which then ultimately leads to this level of innovation that we all want to strive for. But I think we all want to strive for as an organization too, because think about it. We're always trying to solve for that next big problem for our clients. And so if we're half there, then we're not going to be able to get there. But because we are there presenting our full selves, and I know this sounds sort of like esoteric, but it's not, it's real. We're able to get to that point a lot faster and in a more robust manner, because then all the solutions that come out are kind of magical.
Yeah. You touched on a few points that I just want to dive into a bit because I think they're excellent. The first is that you said something about, I don't want to have to split my personality. I don't want to have to split my brain. And I think that's so interesting to think about the mental energy of showing up to a place where you don't feel like you belong, and sort of the mental workload of, fitting in or masking, so to speak, and how much that could detract from your ability to be present and focused and productive on your work. So just acknowledging that this idea, again, of psychological safety, I can show up and be who I am. And, when I'm doing that with the intention of contributing and, being authentic, that is accepted and seen and welcomed. Just the mental load could be reduced that much more just by not having to split my brain and think about, what is my face doing right now? Or how am I acting? Am I acting right? Those sorts of questions.
Well, absolutely. And so I think that goes, that also supports, what we just talked about not feeling like isolated from,
Right.
but being able to receive the nurturing that will organically happen when one is able to feel a part of something. Mm-hmm. And so, it's, and also, when you think about why you go somewhere to work in the first place, it starts with what is the culture like? We always had that big question. And for me, if the culture is not one that that does not resonate with me, I'm like, that's going to be a hard no. And so, you're right.
Yeah.
The money
Sure.
may be great, but there's got to be more than that. And so,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And so, like, I think about what brought me to All Steel. I was somewhere else, and I received the phone call from my old boss, and she's like, "Hey, I'd love to talk to you." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." And like 3 times she called me, and then finally I said, after the second call, I said, "Let me do some digging and just a refresher." And on this company and why I might even entertain this idea. And upon digging, I realized that H&I was established in 1947, by 3 people who really wanted to create an organization where employees were treated equally, and that were seen as members and slash owners. And so when I think about that forward thinking approach way back when, that's 70 something years ago. Wowee. Way back when, that I thought I need to like dig in more and find out more about the culture of this company. Fast forward, I'm here, and so I wouldn't be here if it didn't echo or mirror, the traits that are important to me. And so I had this long-winded response to you because
No, that's great. You were just, I mean, it was exactly what you said earlier about culture is what brought you there, and your community that you've developed and continue to grow is what's, driving you and keeping you engaged in your day to day.
Absolutely. And so to your question, these are important things. And I believe that people make decisions based on how things fit in their personal narratives, because ultimately I believe well-being is at the forefront with which people want to operate through that lens, because otherwise it's just a toll on your psyche and toll on your physicality totally if you're not.
I
Right?
agree. Yes, 100%. Yeah. The other thing that I caught when you were speaking earlier was this idea of a hive collective. And I love that idea that there's some energy and buzz. And granted, like sometimes we do need a break from that. We need a little bit of like stimulation reduction, right? And find some focused area. But there is something to that idea of a hive collective and the energy that can come from socialization and collaboration there. And I think too, that doesn't mean we always have to agree on everything, right? We might have connections in our networks where we go to like get a dissenting opinion, right? To say like, please challenge me on this, poke holes in my idea, right? That's this idea that is also something that we do when we trust, when we can act with authenticity, when we know people are acting in general good interest, good faith efforts.
Right. I use the word hive intentionally because I think about it as like, I think about how we operate, like, think about the bees or like a beehive.
Yeah.
Not the Beyonce hive, but the beehive.
Both are relevant here.
Yes. And so, like, I think about each person has their own role in the hive, but when they all come together, it's this well orchestrated choreography that is like watching magic happen in real time. And so I think of that hive mentality in terms of that, because we're all working in and creating our own intricate patterns that when come together, they create this beautiful fabric of success that is illustrated by the results that we do as a collective. And to me, that's really really powerful because we've heard this before, and I'll continue to echo it. We're stronger together, right?
Yeah. And we need different opinions, right? We can't all just get in line and agree. Yeah.
Well, because then think about how homogenous that would be if we all had the same thought process, and then how boring that would be, and then we'd have the same outcome. Like client A over here has an idea about what they need, and just because, and I don't expect to give client B the same solution that I'm going to give client A, and so I need to have personally. I need to have a disruptor over here saying, wait, but have you thought about this? Or me calling you and saying, Lauren, you're the expert in trauma-informed design. I know that they're trying to solve for this problem. Can you help me with this? And so there's a different level of expertise that goes into all the decisions that we're making. And so to have it all be the same thing, then my God, how boring will the thing be?
Yeah, and that is an excellent point too, Raphael, because we don't have an equation for this, right? We don't have a magic silver bullet equation where we're like, here's how you create community. Go do that. We have to really understand what our client's culture is, what communities they're trying to build or maintain, and how does that show up in space design too.
Yeah. And I always marvel out at those people like yourself and your team who go out into the world and interview clients to get a stronger sense of what is it that they're trying to solve for, and the things that you guys glean from those interviews. It's telling to the strength of. It's telling to the strength of how brilliant I think you all are.
Oh, keep going.
But also, that things just don't happen in the vacuum. They don't happen just because we said so. Because we're trying to see what the data says, and with that, we come up with solutions that we hope will help move the needle for them in a positive direction.
Yeah. And that's super kind of you, and I will take that compliment. But we are not the ones coming up with the solution either. We're not just the brilliant ones, right? We're working with our clients to say here's some research that we have, in our pocket. This is what it might look like. How does that apply to you and your spaces and your communities? So it's a team effort for sure, and yes, go team, go community. That's right. So, Raphael, you called yourself earlier a culture carrier, and I know this topic of community is a personal passion for you. What are you doing, or what would you give as advice to somebody who is working to create community in their areas? Or what are you doing to create community in your areas?
So, getting involved is just the simple first step, and realizing that your point of view matters. And so I think we all, knock on wood, we all go towards something because we're well intended. And so when I think about what I want to see happen in my greater community, I want to see access happen. I want to see connection happen. I want to see the different levels of mentorship that can happen within the organization. Just getting active is just the first step, and identifying those things that are going to be important for you, so that you can see the change and be a part of the change that you want to see in your community.
Yeah. And I don't know if you identify with this, Raphael, but I see you as a connector. I see you as somebody who says, I know this thing and I know this thing, and I can connect those two. So I think that's a brilliant way to think about it. You're making connections and putting people in contact with others and building community actively where you live and work.
Growing up, we moved every 4 years. My mother was, my parents divorced when I was young, and now I'm just getting a little personal, but whatever, because it's going to make a point.
We love it. Yeah.
And every 4 years we moved to a different college town where my mother got her undergrad, her master's degree, then her PhD. But
wow,
it gave me the ability to learn how to meet and connect with different people and people differently. And so I love the idea of making sure that everyone has an opportunity to connect with people that might not have been accessible to them, or that they even might have thought about connecting with. My husband and I have a variety of group of friends, but a couple of them have children that have just graduated from college. And so one of which wants to be one of them, recent graduates from Princeton, no less, wants to be a film writer. And so I said to her, my probing questions, because, I'm all about, I want to make sure that the kids are prepared for tomorrow. And so in those probing questions, I'm asking her, what is it that you want to do? What type of writing do you want to do? And blah, blah, blah. So I get all these answers, and I said, so who do you know? well, and I'm like, well, let's get to know somebody. And so I pull out my little Rolodex of people that I think would resonate with her. And she and I are going to lunch so that she can meet with a producer that might help her.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
And I say,
did she know what a Rolodex was? First question. She was thankful for the connection. She didn't care.
I think it was lost on her, but it was cute nonetheless. But she was grateful, and I mention it because I think we all should be willing to help, however we can, because at some point, one, we're also gonna need that level of help, but two, I mean, how hard is it to be helpful? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Not hard.
And it goes back to this idea for me, a community. I think if I'm part of your community, I'm going all in so that we all can be going forward together. And I think the operative word is moving forward together.
Well, and I will share, Raphael, one of the things I appreciate about our conversations is that you are always asking good questions, hard questions, probing questions to get to the core of what we need to do and where we're going and why we're doing the thing. So I do appreciate those. And I'm sure everyone else in your community benefits from you asking those questions and making those connections. So
let me ask you another question then.
Okay, lay it on me.
So what is it about your community that keeps you moving forward?
I live in a town in my personal community. I live in a town where I do not have family nearby, and I have 2 young kids. So developing community in which, we have the help that we need when both my husband and I travel quite a bit for work. So developing that community and being able to return those, helpful actions to our community is super meaningful to us. We've developed, a family here that helps us, stay grounded and stay stable and make it through. So that's been great. And at work, the communities that we've developed, to your point, are what keep me excited to come to work every day, to keep me going, to learn the next new thing. I've been so excited to have been able to really been pushed to create spaces that are more inclusive and really mindful of community, because I think, these are areas that really motivate me individually and I feel passionate about too.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to also say, because I love that you brought up your family friends who help with your 2 kids. Because I am a firm believer in it takes a village, and I really love that sort of thing being displayed in your private life. But it's also, I think it's displayed in your professional life too, because when I think about all the help that you've given me and my colleagues over time, I mean, we've gone from not knowing, this whatever research to being like this level of expertise that I think is really, really powerful, which is why the intentional community conversation really is something that is resonating, because everyone's trying to figure out what's going to keep people coming back into the office. And beyond that simple thing, I think it's more about, what's going to keep people employed at this place or want to stay there. Because there's always a dangly, shiny new something or other, but the grass is not always greener. One. Right. But what keeps me going again is the cultural aspect, and then rounding out with community and those relationships that have developed and grown and blossomed over time, which is a beautiful thing, because when you think about family, I love the fact that I get to choose a family, and I get to choose a work family outside of my my personal and biological family. So
yeah. And I love that too, Raphael, because I remember actually meeting you for the first time a few years ago, and it was like, you have a well AP, I have a well AP, we should be friends. Yeah. And since that time, we've been so we connected over this one thing, and we don't live in the same state, right? But we've been able to get a lot of good work done and have a lot of great conversations and do a lot of meaningful work because of that community that we developed. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you being here with me today and sharing your thoughts. Anything else you want to leave us with before we
I could go on forever, but thank you for reaching out and asking me to be a part of this important conversation.
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored to have you join. So thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. So stay tuned. We will be continuing this conversation about intentional community. We're going to be sharing some research that we've done in this area in the next episode. But thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode of Tell Me More. Take care.
And that brings us to the end of another fascinating episode of Tell Me More. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of design and innovation. If you're hungry for more insights and stories, make sure to subscribe to Tell Me More on your preferred podcast platform. As we sign off, remember that the conversation doesn't end here. Connect with us on social media at Allsteel and share your thoughts, questions, or even your favorite moments from the podcast. We love hearing from our engaged and curious audience. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll continue exploring the Design to Do More philosophy. Until then, thanks for listening.